What had intervened here was an effort to dramatically cut the budget of the Endangered Species Program, to increase the budget for minerals management, and then to lease, while leaving the polar bear still out there without the protection which it deserves. So, with all the sweetheart deals given to the oil companies, you know, every day is Valentine's Day for big oil in the Bush administration's Interior Department, and today is Valentine's Day, February 14th. And it just fits so perfectly, this whole sequence. And you don't have to be Dick Tracy to figure out what happened here, because the sequencing is so perfect. The bias against the Endangered Species Program, the favoritism played for, given to the oil and gas management, and yet everyone pretends that there is nothing that is at play here. In fact, Dale Hall, the Director of Fish and Wildlife, says he did not want to overpush his staff to make a listing decision on the polar bear on time, on deadline. That's his testimony before the Senate. Didn't want to push his staff. Well, his staff must have been overworked, so what's the recommendation? To cut the budget another $3.7 million. They won't be meeting any deadlines on endangered species in the future when you're cutting their budget. So, Mr. Secretary, I say that because my eyebrows are arched up to the ceiling looking at this sequence of events, and I'd like you just to respond to my observation that this administration has made a deliberate set of decisions that has led to the polar bear being left out there on the ice floe without the protection which it deserves.
I'd be happy to. The decision on the polar bear will be a significant decision. I can't tell you what that decision will be today. You can well imagine whichever way it is, there will be a series of lawsuits. There was no interrelationship. When Fish and Wildlife in December of '07 made a determination that they wanted to propose the listing of the, in fact it was probably '06, December of '06, a proposed listing, they did an evaluation. They determined that subsistence hunting was not a factor with regard to the polar bear. They determined that oil and gas exploration and development was not a factor. It was melting sea ice. During the course then of the year of the proposed listing, the scientists at the U.S. Geological Survey were enlisted to go and do their studies, to do their science, and to come back with that. The state of Alaska asked if we would extend the comment period, which we agreed to. We have over 670,000 responses that have been made because of the far-reaching nature of this. The sale in the Chukchi Sea had been deferred once before because there were additional concerns raised at that time that Fish and Wildlife and NOAA worked out. To make a determination that we would hold up the scheduled lease sale of the Chukchi Sea for the polar bear would say, oh, now we've made a determination that they are linked, that they are the impact. That would be contrary to what Fish and Wildlife had stated at the beginning of the proposed rule.
But Fish and Wildlife said in the Federal Register on January 9th, increases in Arctic oil and gas development coupled with increases in shipping and/or development of offshore and land-based pipeline increase the potential for an oil spill to negatively affect polar bears and/or their habitat. And MMS said that this assessment concludes that the effects of a large oil spill, particularly during the broken ice period, could pose significant risks to the polar bear populations, and that the likelihood of such a spill is between 33 and 51%. So you have all that evidence as you're allowing the leasing to go forward while postponing the listing decision on the polar bear and cutting the Endangered Species Act at the very same time. You recommend a $3.7 million cut in the Endangered Species Act.